Hello, this is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 143 of Gaming with Grief, and I'm calling this episode Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice Spoilercast, because, well, that's what it is. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Please go there and let me know what you think of the show, what I can do to improve. You can leave a comment on the episode, or maybe you have a game or something you want me to talk about. You can leave that on the comment under the individual episodes. You can also go back and listen to past episodes, or you can write to me directly at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Again, do the same stuff there. Go there, write me an email. Let me know what you think of the show, what I can do to improve. Again, if you want me to cover a game, you can suggest it there. And if you have a question about an episode, let me know how it goes, what you think there, or, how you want me to, suggestions, basically. You can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. So go there if you want to interact with me on Twitter. I will try to get better about promoting the episode. And please like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, and a big announcement, I'm now on Spotify. So it is just a bigger bullhorn to get the word out about the podcast. So you can follow me on Spotify there if that's where you like to get podcasts. But this is going to be a strange spoiler cast because when I do these and I take notes and I try to extrapolate meaning from what the game is, I played in my impressions video or podcast on episode 143. I talked about my first impressions of Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. I give all the background information there. Go back and listen to that episode if you want to just hear the quick impressions. I've since beaten the game. It took about 7 hours to beat. Not a very long game. But what is so strange about this spoiler cast, or at least strange for me, is the fact that there is a 25-minute documentary on YouTube about the making of the game. So they talk about why they made the game and the people they worked with to make the game. So instead of me just parroting all that information to you, I want you to go there. There's a YouTube video called Hellblade Senua's Psychosis. It was posted on October 10th, 2018. And on their website, there's actually numbers. You pick the country that you're from, and they have a number for mental health help hotline. I want to say that number here. So if you're in the U.S., you can pick the countries. They obviously are based in the U.K. I said that before. You can click on that link. The numbers are there. But for U.S. residents, you can call 1-800-273-8255. And somebody apparently will help you if you're having mental health issues. Or you can text 741-741 at the crisis text line, which they didn't give that. I think that's the number up above. But usually when I do these spoiler casts, I talk about how, it was abstract and you kind of pull this, and they're kind of especially Gris. That was such an abstract game of someone trying to fill in color in a coloring book, and you're traveling with this girl, this woman, as she's going on this journey. She's in front of a statue. It breaks. There is a little bit of that in Senua's Sacrifice, but if you watch the documentary, they base Senua and her people off a real-life event or a real group of people, the Celts or the Picts. Apparently they were in Scotland, and the Vikings landed in whenever, I forget the date. The Vikings landed on their shores a long, long time ago and started to attack them. So they started calling them the Northmen, and they had big battles. In fact, it seems like some of the Northmen back in the day would have human sacrifice. It was part of their religion, I guess, in the day. And they wove that into the narrative, but they number one wanted to focus on mental health and psychosis. They recommend you play the game with headphones because you can hear people, these inner monologue, these inner voices. And what they did when you watch the documentary, not only did they weave these real world people into these people that lived in the world, but, at least this tribe of people, they brought in people that were recovering from psychosis in therapy and talked to them about their experience and wove those experiences into the game. So from the documentary, it looked like they had about 4 people. They didn't give their names. But they just interviewed them off and on. They said they were in recovery. Maybe they did towards the end. But basically, they said it was amazing to see my experience shared with the developer turned into a game mechanic. and how they were able to do that. So to get into the nitty gritty of Senua, sometimes you will see a rune on a door, like the letter P, but it's an old ancient rune, but it looks like P. So you have to walk around the environment and find the letter P and focus on it, and then that unlocks that rune. It's like superimposed. And you think, well, that's a puzzle mechanic, whatever. But when these people that were recovering from psychosis and therapy said, they interviewed doctors as well, and they said, no, people that suffer from psychosis sometimes see meanings in things that aren't there. So they get incredibly obsessed with numbers, or he said, the doctor said, it could be something that we feel is completely nominal and not worth our time. But people think, oh, this number is significant, and they'll see this number or they'll see this letter. And they said it was really amazing to them on the dev team that they were able to take something like this, and in games, that's such an easy mechanic. You see something, it unlocks a door, something like that. And then they started to... it was a truly small developer. It sounds like they did a lot of this. Ninja Theory at the time, they've since been purchased by Microsoft, so they probably have many more resources to do, bigger stuff. I will say, it is amazing to me in the game that Senua keeps talking about the darkness. The darkness is infecting her. She talks about her mother having the darkness. And this is obviously not a very thinly veiled analogy of mental health, of, maybe her mother had psychosis. They even brought that up in the documentary. They said maybe this is something that needs to be explored. Senua is, completely kind of chained down by this. She hurts people around her. Her husband is Dylan or Dylan. But I believe the actress is. She actually worked on the dev team. She was an editor, it sounded like, and they said, hey, well, we just want to get the feel for this. They were doing a lot of stuff in their studio with like green screens and offices because they were a small studio. And so they hooked cameras up to her, and they basically said, it sounds like they liked her all along, but they just told her, hey, we're just trying to work out this technology, because her facial expressions are amazing. If you watch that documentary, I definitely recommend it. Play the game first, because there is spoilers, but you're here. I'm spoiling the episode. And so I think there's another thing that makes this Spoilercast unique. I'm talking more about the making of the game than the game itself. But I think it's so fascinating that it is not an abstract exercise for people to say, hey, what would it be like if someone had psychosis and was dealing with psychosis? And instead of just making a game about it, they said, why don't we get doctors that deal with psychosis and patients that are recovering from psychosis to say, yeah, that's very accurate, I know this might be controversial, but I know some people hate the word representation, but as I've seen over and over again, representation matters. Whatever group you're in, these people said it was so amazing to see my story up there on the screen. Like, now people are going to play it. And the people from the Wellness Foundation, which also work in this game, in the documentary, they say it is a unique way to show, and probably only games can do this, show how psychosis is. And one of the aspects that they use to show this is they take a, I want to say bilateral, but that's probably incorrect, a bilateral mic stand. It's basically it's a microphone that has two silicone or rubber ears on either side, and they've designed it like the human ear. They put a wind guard over it, or a guard over it, like a foam guard, and then it showed them with the actors, directing them on how to be in Senua's ear or in her mind. And they would walk around and away and back and step, a few feet back, a few feet forward from the mic to give this impression that people were whispering or upset or mad. And basically this mic replicated how sound goes into an ear. And so, again, this is just this amazing idea to reinforce, what is happening in Senua's mind. And, this is a spoiler cast, so at the end of the game, when it was her father that basically tried, quote unquote, everything to help her mental health. Now, they do mention in the documentary that the Celts, or the Picts, actually had somebody called a Gelt, which seems like someone who was dealing with mental health and they would allow them, and you could say this is good or bad. Probably back in the day it was very bad. But they'd basically send them into the woods on like a vision quest, it seems like, to rid themselves of their mental health things. Now, that's probably not the right way to do it, but it wasn't a banishment. It was more like a test of will. And one of the early things they said, and I think I said in the Quick Impressions podcast, the doctor said, that we wanted to show this Senua is going on this journey with mental health. Her journey isn't mental health. It isn't her having psychosis. In the game, she's trying to lay the soul of her husband to rest. I said in the Impressions podcast that she carried his head with her, and she felt that, she had to go to the gates of hell and basically see his soul rest because she feels that she hurt him, it seemed like. And through the game, there's several conversations where a plague comes to her village. She blames herself because her husband, she blames herself for bringing it because everybody says she has this darkness with her. That's obviously a prevailing feeling at the time. If you have mental health and you are a witch or whatever. Her mother is burned at the stake. So that's another reason maybe her mother had mental health. And back in the day, since nobody could diagnose mental health, they would just burn people. But Senua feels responsible for all this and then almost commits suicide. But her husband comes to her and says, and which is interesting how they shoot it because you never really see him. He's faded away or whatever, which I like the idea of it's a memory of him that she's remembering. Or he becomes blue light because he's good in a way. And anyway, the idea that he tells her this is not your fault. And there's a scene earlier where his father is dead. And he said, you did this to my father. You brought this plague. And then when they're talking, when she's about to commit suicide, she's going to jump over a cliff. And he says, I didn't say that. And that's another thing they brought up in the documentary is that your version of reality is not what it is. It is, it's not, if you're suffering from psychosis, it's not what it should be. So you will see or hear things that maybe are not there. And you will kind of extract information when maybe there isn't any there, or it's not a one-to-one process. And again, this is not some abstract exercise where they thought, you know what, let's just make a game and she hears voices. And, everything they turned into a mechanic. When she defeats bosses in the game, the boss of fire that burns everything around you, I don't think that's a very subtle analogy, but I love it. The fact that, if you have mental health, you hurt a lot of people around you. But when she fights them, she always says, I couldn't kill you out in the wild, but I'll do it now. So maybe she was on her vision quest. They did say that they try to make it more mental, like maybe all this is going on in her mind. The game ends on a bit of an up note where she says, I have another story to tell, follow me. There's a trailer out for that now. It seems like her and the Picts are fighting a giant, which is part of the Northmen. So I want to see where this goes with mental health. Does it... you still hear a voice or two, but not much. But yeah, there is a lot of looking into the, the camera, directly into the viewer. And the voice comes from there. Like people will talk to her. You'll hear you, quote unquote, saying something to her as she's looking at the camera at you. And I don't know. It was fascinating. I'm not going to regurgitate the whole thing, but please go watch that documentary if you're interested about mental health or anything like that. I have still thought about this game. I beat it a few days ago, and I'm still thinking about it. I definitely want to play the next one, and I know that my awards at the end of the year don't mean anything, even though I did that last year. But there's something about this game that is incredibly powerful, and I keep thinking about it. The fact that these people decided to reach out to mental health experts is pretty amazing. The fact that you can do that. To me, it shows a new way of game development where you say, what we were doing, but, we need to be a little bit more responsible, I guess, in a way. So I know it's a little bit shorter of a spoiler cast, but I really, it's something I think that you have to experience. So again, it's on Game Pass. It's on other platforms. I did the price, I think, last time of the Impressions episode. But if you have Xbox Game Pass, you're out absolutely nothing. And please go do that. And please play this incredibly amazing special game. Thank you so much, Ninja Theory. And you know what? I'm glad that they were purchased by Microsoft. Now they may be able to do more. They'll have more resources to do more things. So with that being said, guys, I want to remind everybody that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamewithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Go there, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the show. Please write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Give me, suggestions, things, stuff like that. Let me know what you think of the show as well. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes or Google Play Store. And now I'm on Spotify. So, go there also and let me know what you think. I think on Spotify, it's hard to give ratings, I heard. But just do the best you can, or whatever is available to you. I couldn't figure out how to do it on there, but I'm an old man. So also, you can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. So go there. Interact with me there. Leave me a message. Let me know what you think. And I think with that, guys, I will leave you to it. Have a good week, and I will talk to you guys again next week.